Welcome to another episode of NBP Media, where we have healthy discourse on issues that affect Black men to look at issues through a different lens. Today, our topic is liberalism an issue in the Black community? Now, this probably will be an unpopular podcast to most because I'm trying to go for the devil's advocate opinion. Plus, as we see, this is the age of liberalism, especially in the Black community. We have a lot of intersectionalist theories. We have a lot of different questions on gender equality, gender fluidity, a bunch of these type of these questions and theories. Now, for me, this channel, NBP, known as New Black Perspective, is a channel for Black men, mostly heterosexual Black men. But there's no judgment here. If you're from even if you are a homosexual Black male, it doesn't matter. You're still part of us, and we still would want you to listen because you're our brothers too. But unfortunately, this is about our perspective and our story. Now, the biggest issue with liberalism, and some things are good. I think liberalism is kind of like in a society where, let's say if you're a conservative society, a power-hungry society, at a certain point when you grow to the highest level, I think it's easier to have more expressions of freedom, to let loose in a sense. It's kind of like letting loose, because building a high society with no fun and no, a certain level of entertainment, and it takes away, like it's a pressure pot. Like, so eventually at some point societies have to have releases so people don't go crazy. As you see in the States right now, there's mass shootings everywhere, and it's a lot of factors. But that's more of a racism issue. But racism is at such a building point that now you start to see widespread violence. Now, whereas in our example, American society mostly was conservative. So after a while, from the 60s, from sexual revolution on, you start to have, factions of women that are now talking about, rights. They start having questions about gender. They start having more of a feminism approach. They want to be equal in the workplace, and this is their right, and this is what their foremothers and have worked for. So in that theory, I believe it's okay. Now, as everything in this episode, we related back to the Black man. So now the issue with liberalism in general is that I think in Black culture, now I'm speaking for U.S. Black culture. Now, Black culture started in the Deep South. If you think about the slave trade and where they went to in America, they went to the Deep South. We're talking about the Mississippis, the Carolinas, Texas, wherever. And this was to work on, fertile land, farming, rice farming, sugar. These are the things that, so the culture of Black America started from the South, the religious belt, the South. So naturally, And if you know the history, they never got anything. They never were given anything. So for them to build themselves up, they had to depend on each other. They had to depend on family structure to rebuild a family structure, whether it's to marry and to just build together communities for the first time in American history. And their beliefs have always been more conservative than the average white person for a multitude of topics, due to the deep religious beliefs of blacks in America and worldwide too. Now, things change now after, I guess, political pressure, I guess after things such as economic opportunities. Some had to do with economic deprivation that led a lot of black folks to leave the South. Some for opportunities, some were for fair purposes. But now you have a lot of black people that went into a lot of northern cities, a lot of the Detroits, the Californias, a lot of these people. So essentially, they kind of met up with the other type of white person, not the overt racist, but the white person that probably doesn't care for them, and they never really wanted them to be there, but they're just not as calloused, or they're not as open with their racism as their southern counterparts. Now, this is just the overall theme of talking about the conservative ideologies that were always rooted in black culture. Now, let's start talking about present day. Now, let's talk about a lot of the flaws that liberalism has brought into the black community. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you have a lot of the feminist doctrine, which is a loud minority of black females in the community. Now, the influence is getting stronger, but at the same time, they're still small and growing in numbers. Now, with these type of women, I don't think that they prioritize. I don't think they prioritize having a family. I don't think that. I think especially the women who were raised more in the third wave feminism, they look at men as disposable. The state is the father. You look at a lot of these theories, especially a lot of sisters that go get educated and indoctrinated in a lot of these universities that are actually funded by Rockefeller foundations and stuff. So they actually bring a lot of this subversive language, and they teach a lot of women a lot of these gender theory classes and gender studies. They teach them that their own man is the enemy a lot of times. So a lot of times what you notice is the authority of the black man has always been cut short. So not only by American society, but now his woman who gets the green light from the same society to cut him down even more. Now, how could you build a happy family with that? If the black man has to deal with the same burden as every other man, but doesn't get the benefits as every other man, how could you want this man to deal with that in such an unfair situation? A lot of men do it because they're strong men, but it's pretty much a bad deal. Now, we look at the feminist side of it. Now let's look at maybe the LGBT side. Now, this channel here, we're about everybody. We're not telling you what you shouldn't and should do. I'm not a dick police or pussy police. That's not what we do. But we're talking about the LGBT wing of the black community. And Now, I'm all for your sexual expression or freedom, but let's talk about the overrepresentation of LGBT blacks as far as in Hollywood, as compared to the populations in black society. So that's one issue, the overrepresentation, because essentially they're favored by white society because this is what they want the future of black America to be. It lowers the population, so this is an effective measure of population control. And and the thing is, they also are being used as people to go against the black male, the heterosexual black male. So they're actually being used now. That's why I don't push, I don't discriminate against a lot of our black LGBT brothers or sisters, because once you push them away, other people will weaponize them and use them against you. I think I was reading some article, and they were talking about the employment opportunities with LGBT, like gay black men, and they were pretty high. They were pretty much close to the levels of white men. So it kind of shows you that who is more so favored in this society. And I think people have to look out for that. Also, my biggest issue with the LGBT is not necessarily the lifestyle, because that's not my problem. It's more so that once you start to raise under the banner of your sexuality, then you start to look at, or you start to ignore certain things that are important to you, that should be important to you. Look at the racism that a lot of black LGBT folks have to deal with from their white counterparts. Recently, a few months ago, Ed Buck, big time donor for the Clintons and other liberal politicians, he literally, I don't know what type of escapades he has at his place, but they literally, 2 black men they died at his place. Do you think he's going to get any charges for that? I highly doubt it. And I just hear other stories about the discrimination that goes on in black, within the LGBT community towards the black people. So it's the same community, it's the same thing. The problem is they only use them to weaponize them against the real issue, the real enemy, which is the hetero black male, because he is the key to providing more black children in America. I mean, it's no rocket science. Another factor that we could talk about economically, in a lot of these liberal cities, obviously black people got the raw deal everywhere, in conservative places but we're talking more about liberal areas. Look at a place like California, from San Francisco. Look at the homelessness. Look at the black homelessness in California in general. Skid Row in Los Angeles. Look at, obviously we mentioned San Francisco. Look at the violence. Look at the violence in a lot of these liberal communities. Chicago. Chicago is a perfect example. They always vote liberal. Look at places that have high black populations, such as the Baltimores, DC, New York. These are all liberal establishments, and what they all have in common is the poverty of the blacks. You have to look at the gentrification of the black people, how they're being gentrified out of their own neighborhoods that they establish. You have to talk about the failing schools, the increasing prison populations. And you also have to start paying attention to this benign neglect policy, where they focus on everything but black male issues or black community issues. Sometimes they may throw a bone to black women, but a lot of black women's struggle are due to their man being public enemy number one. If the black man had it well, I'm pretty sure he would reciprocate that to the black woman, and I think that she would have less burden on her. But she can't fight a battle by herself, and a lot of them don't understand that they cannot fight this by themselves. But when we talk about the benign neglect, we talk about the Democrats, they now start talking about illegal immigrants. They start talking about LGBT. They start talking about women's rights. It's laughable. White women basically have used black women to get minority status, and now they are under, because of the hard fight that black women did. Now white women are under the banner of quote unquote minority. So this is another failure of liberalism as far as today's society. Now, in my theory, people are going to hate me for this one. I would say that this is kind of like, this goes back all the way. When we talk about conservatism, we talk about liberalism. Look, I'm not going to lead you to the conservative road, because there's clearly a lot of racist thinking white folks that are there. So I'm not going to be gung-ho on, hey, black man, you have to be conservative. You got to be liberal. That's not what I'm doing. The black man should understand the dangers that are coming from both sides. And the black man should say, I should be independent. I should be independent. Or I should be independent until I get with all my brothers and one day we can build our own political party. That is the key, is to mobilize your power. Conservatives will have conservative racism based on white nationalism. This is what they do. And liberals will have more of a neglect policy where they want everybody to rise up except for you. And another factor with a lot of liberal society is a lot of them were the main ones that were based in the eugenics movement. So yeah, they weren't saying nigger this, nigger that, but they were the ones who just wanted to limit your birth rates scientifically. They wanted to reverse engineer the structure of your family. I ain't saying the conservatives are any better, because a lot of them burn crosses on your lawn. So it's just, I'm saying it's just two sides of the coin. That's all I'm trying to say. Now, my theory is, when we talk about conservatism and we talk about liberalism, let's bring it back, as far as the plantation and slavery. Now, we already know. We talk about the slavery experience. We talk about how brutal it was. But these are the descendants of the same type of people that were these plantation owners or overseers. These are the same people. For instance, let's talk about the conservative first, the white conservative. And we're going to mention the ones who are more racist in nature. I'm not going to cast that dispersion on all white folks, but let's just say the one that's a bit more racist. Let's just say that white person ran a plantation with all the blacks. The black woman had hell. The black man had hell first. But they extended that to the black woman and the black child. They would sell the child off, abuse the women, destroy the men. Now, in a society, in a plantation like this, at a certain point, there is no choice but to have an uprising. You see, because now the black man, the black women will say enough is enough, and we cannot deal with this. So there's a code that gets built from this type of behavior, from this type of oppression. That's how codes are formed, because people say, I'd rather die than to deal with this level of tyranny and oppression. Now, on the other hand, let's look at a plantation that was run more by a white liberal type. A person that, they don't believe in the equality of blacks, but they're probably not going to be as harsh as a slave owner. But they still want the production and the work done. So let's go to a Thomas Jefferson type of white person, where that plantation had a black man. He was under the barrel of the gun and the whip, so they whipped his ass all day. He had trouble. He had trouble all the way. So he had no way to ever do anything for himself. But let's just say in the same plantation, they kind of favored the black woman a little bit. Whether it was to give her some privileges, whether it was for sexual favor, whether it was for whatever. Maybe she had a mulatto child or whatever, and that child could have privilege, whatever. Now, if you look at that situation, how could the black man and black woman be on code? Because she's not going to stop. She's not going to want to stop what's going to happen. The black man could say, oh, we need to stop this, and we need to revolt. And the black woman will look at him like, I got it good here. Bye, nigga. You see what I'm saying? So because of this, this is the equivalent of liberalism. And now don't even get me started on the LGBT part, because in some of these plantations, as you know, they were buck breaking. A lot of these same slave masters had wanted sexual relationships with the men too, and they broke a couple men, and a lot of those men were, they turned out to be gay due to the trauma. Now if you have a plantation that has women who are more attracted to the white men, or at least the white power, the power of these white men, and now you have a black boy or girl or black man that has been assaulted or traumatized by sexual assault from another man, but they still enjoy the privilege of this position. How could you form a code? How could a black man form a code with these other two groups? It's impossible. And I know this is very descriptive and it sucks as a story, but think about the amount of successful slave revolts in America. There had to be a reason that some of these revolts weren't successful. It's because of the unity of the black man and the black woman. And now you have other fringe groups that are growing, such as the black LGBT. And the black man is like, look, it's just best if we're on code together. Now you got some idiots who are just going to discriminate. And yes, people have to be dealt with. I believe that you should have a safe environment for our gay brothers and sisters. But you have to be in the community and build relations with the community so you can also be protected, or we can figure out a solution together. But you cannot just say, woe is me, and then go to the white people and be a useful idiot for the whites. Because at the end of the day, their gay population doesn't mess with yours, and you're just a nigga in their community. So it doesn't matter. So you're fighting for your own oppression, in a sense. And so that's what I believe. I just believe that, there are more sinister plots. I believe if you're Black LGBT in this society, you're the equivalent of a eunuch in the Arab slave trade, where they just cut the man's penis off, and he was trusted to be, more. They trusted him with the women more. Because he had no sexual organs. And I think if you willfully just mess with a man, or to a lesser extent women on women, I believe you're the equivalent. It's just that instead of them cutting your organs, your mind now gravitates to your own sex. But it's the same effect. And I know it's harsh to say that, but it's the same effect. At the end of the day, I still love all my people. But I do believe that this liberalism is a issue in the Black community, because it is too much state that's involved in the Black affairs. So there's no way this is this is being subsidized by outsiders. This is the problem with liberal Black communities. They're being subsidized by outsiders, and they pull a few up, and then the rest they let decay and rot. And I believe more in a conservative society that has more family building and family growth, you would probably be able to cultivate your children more, cultivate your group economics more, your education, and all of that. I just think liberalism is not for Black people in America, especially with the neglectful policies that happen, where they ignore you for every other person's issues, and then we still vote for them at a 90-something% clip, which is embarrassing. So, Black man, this is messages for you. Politically, you are different than most of your Black women. That doesn't mean y'all need to have a discourse, or discord between the two. You should love your woman as she should love her man. But guess what? Politically, you're the failure. She's getting what she wants. Black man, when you vote liberal, you're voting against your own interests, and you're voting for almost the extermination of you as a Black man, which in turn will exterminate the Black woman and child. So, I know it sounds harsh, but someone got to tell you. Anyways, we're gonna leave now. This has been a good episode. We're gonna talk to you next week on NBP Media. We're going to talk about, are the politics of a Black man and woman, are they different? That's going to be the topic of our next episode. But for now, peace out. Talk to you later. Thanks for listening. Later.